The much anticipated space docking or the mating of two Indian satellites in space took place attempted by the ISRO. ISRO had said that a trial attempt to reach up to 15 meters and further to 3 meters is done. The spacecrafts are being moved back to a safe distance and the docking process will be done after analyzing data further. Remember, this is an experiment that's being carried out by ISRO. I'm also being joined at this point by Dr. Ajay Lele, Deputy Director General of MPIDSA, which is the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Lele. Now, if you're talking about this particular project or this experiment that ISRO has carried out, if you could take us through the system of the docking process and why that is significant to bolster the further missions that ISRO would take out.
You see, when the two satellites were launched on 30th December last year, the two satellites were put into a particular orbit. After that, the satellites were separated at a distance of around 20 kilometers. And once they were in a circular orbit at almost the same altitude and a distance of 20 kilometers, they started reducing that distance. So the drill was from 20 kilometers, you come to 5 kilometers, then to 1.5 kilometers, then to 225 meters, then to 15 meters, and now it is at 3 meters distance. So it has gone exactly the way ISRO wanted. There were two issues on 7th and 9th. 7th, actually they wanted certain amount of softwares to be rechecked because there is a concept of aborting the mission also. You come very close to each other and suddenly you realize that the exact sort of a docking is not going to happen. Under those circumstances, instead of allowing the satellites to hit on each other, you can abort the mission. So they wanted to test and validate the software of abort mission on 7th. And on 9th, they realized that they have reached to a distance of around 225 meters as expected, but the drift and the entire system, the way they wanted it, is not in the particular alignment. Because if you are having more amount of a velocity, then definitely docking is going to be a problematic thing. Because when you are going to close to each other, actually what you are looking is to have a relative velocity which will almost touch to zero. That means the velocity difference between both the satellites. So you will have to have a typical type of a velocity in order to ensure that the docking happens and there is no collision which happens. So that's the way the experiment has been designed. Now, the another issue is that we had taken good amount of a time for this mission, because if you see, as far as International Space Station is concerned and other major events which happen of a docking, the docking happens within 8 to 10 hours after the launch of a satellite. But their spacecrafts are quite sturdy. Their spacecrafts carry a lot amount of a fuel. Here we are basically looking at a natural drift. So our idea is not to do a docking immediately. Our idea is to do a successful docking. And that's why ISRO has taken good amount of a time, and they fully understand that once their systems are fully capable of moving towards each other and undertake docking, then only they will start that experimentation. So as per the tweet issued by ISRO, they had touched a distance of 3 meters. Now I think they are again slightly separating the distance. And once they do a full alignment, both the sensors on both the aircrafts, both the spacecrafts, particularly one spacecraft is known as a target and other is a chaser.
Right.
So the spacecrafts have their own sensor systems. So they will try to see to each other and based on the inputs which are received, because at this point in time, the mission will be totally autonomous. When a distance is around 5 kilometers between the satellites, already a link has been established. So both the satellites can transmit to each other their altitude and their position. So it's a very critical operation which they are going to undertake. Let's wait and watch how it takes place.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Lele, for joining us and bringing that insight into this particular experiment that ISRO has conducted. Both satellites have been brought together till 3 meters of distance and now have been put back at a safe distance is what we're learning.